Hey, Amanda, I'm so glad that you're joining me today. We're going to talk about some statistics that you unearthed that are mind-boggling. The U.S. jobs that are created in America between 2023 and 2024 versus the number of foreign worker authorizations approved in the same period of time. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's just go with it. Tell me, let's go with 2023 first.
So what's interesting about 2023 is that we only created about 3 million net new jobs. But based off of the new UCIS tool where you're able to search all the approvals that they have put out there for foreign workers. So that includes your H-1B, your L-1s, your anybody that's coming here across the border who's got an approval for work authorization. They approved over 9 million work authorizations for foreign workers during a time where we only created 3 million net new jobs. And that's jobs that would technically go to the potential 7 million unemployed workers that we had that year, or the 1 in 4 American workers who are underemployed. Those are opportunities that could have presented for Americans, but instead we authorized for 9 million foreign workers in 2023.
I like to repeat things like this because, firstly, I like to memorize them, but also you have to ponder just how dramatic those numbers are. In America, we created 3 million new jobs in 2023. And these statistics are from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, correct?
Correct, yes. Official, that's their numbers.
It's their numbers, 3 million jobs. And the same government approved in 2023 9,358,315 foreign worker authorizations. So we're talking about 6.3 million more foreigners authorized to work in the United States. Now, these are new authorizations. In 2023, I'm going to repeat it, 6,358,315 more foreigners were given worker authorizations in 2023 than jobs were created, which was 3.0 million. And this is according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. My question always with this, sort of when I pick up my jaw that hit my desk, pick myself up off the floor and take a stomach medicine, are these statistics that President Trump is being presented with today? Does he know what we just repeated on this podcast? That we brought in 3 times as many foreign workers as jobs that were created. And also the second question is always, is this what the American people voted for? Now, these are 2023 statistics, but they apply to today. Don't you agree? Because this is there's a cumulative effect. We already have tens of millions of authorized foreign workers in America. These are new authorized foreign workers. And this will affect the next year, which we're going to talk about next, 2024. But now we're into 2025, and you and I think the American people want to know, again, does President Trump know about these statistics, this history, what's happening also right now? And is this what the American people voted for in November of 2024? So let's talk about 2024. Yay. Let's move on to some more good news.
Well, so we actually produced less jobs in 2024 than we did in 2023. we only created net 2.2 million jobs. So we lost quite a bit there. And instead of, 3 times the amount of jobs, we got 5.5 million jobs essentially approved for foreign workers in 2024 as well.
So it's double. It's double the number of worker authorizations approved in 2024 over the net jobs created, which was 2.2 million. And the foreign worker authorizations was 5,560,758. Stunning. So those 2 years combined, we brought in 14,800,000. I'm kind of just doing the math in my head. 900,000 people. 14,900,000. So almost 15 million. And we only created 5.2 million jobs. So I'd like to know what everybody watching this thinks. And we're going to keep this short because we're just going to pack in some really hardcore statistics that probably nobody knows in America. I didn't even believe Congress knows this. So I'm inviting our esteemed Republican Congress, both senators and representatives, to join me. I'd like to talk to them about this. I want to know if the Bureau of Labor Statistics is doing this math with you. I mean, doing this math and giving this information to you. Are they working with immigration and citizenship data? Are they combining it and figuring it, calculating it with the employment or labor statistics? Does Congress know? Does the president know? Does the cabinet know? Or is everybody talking in its own silos? And are the people that are responsible for informing the president and Congress not doing their job?
Well, I think that's a good point, too, to bring in that he may not know necessarily these numbers of approvals, but at the pace that we're approving already for 2025, we're going to see substantially more than probably 2023.
Ooh, okay, that's bad. So President Trump, we hope that someone shares this video with you. Anybody who wants President Trump to see this needs to share it around enough so that it will rise above the fray and he will get this. There will be reporting on this at WorldNetDaily. I'm not sure if that story's gone in yet, but it will be in the next day or so. Do you have anything more to say about the staggering statistics here?
And I think it's just really important to know, it's what these numbers aren't taking into consideration is the fact that we're going to have more people who become in a working age joining the workforce than we had the previous year. It isn't taking consideration of the layoffs. So people who have re-entered the unemployment workforce that are going to be needing these jobs, or the ones that have, been off because they're mothers or they've taken a period of time to take care of family members. We have our own Americans at home that should have had the opportunity to compete for those jobs with just our own domestic workforce. But instead, when we're bringing in these new people, we're competing, we're having to compete with 3 times the amount of people than we would have normally done with just the domestic numbers. What that does is it brings down the wages. So it's a huge, benefit for all the employers because anybody's going to accept any amount of money, whether they're American or they're foreign worker. You're going to create a situation where people are going to be more and more indentured for lower pay. And that's where we get back into those same numbers of 1 in 4 Americans or 1 in 4 families are not making enough to even survive. They don't have survivable wages. So what are we doing in the day if we continue down this path where we're not creating enough jobs and we're bringing too many people here that want our jobs?
Most people who are informed know that the unemployment statistic, which is regularly around 4%, a little higher, whatever, is not true. That's not truly reflective of unemployment. This is not the Trump administration that has done this. It started happening years ago where they defined unemployed as someone who has searched for a job in the last 30 days and hasn't received an offer of a job. Well, if the person stopped 31 days ago, looking for a job because they've been searching for a year, then they don't show up. If they become demoralized, which is a phenomena that is regularly accepted, this is an accepted phenomena that those who are demoralized and no longer look for work because they can't get a job or can't get a job that will pay them over minimum wage when they have a college degree, or a job that is enough hours a week. Sometimes they're counting someone employed if they've only worked a few hours in the previous week. How is that employed when they are also looking for full-time employment? They want full-time employment, but they cannot find it. So these statistics, Amanda and I are going to go over those in an upcoming episode. We just haven't gotten to it yet. And I would also like to highlight something that you just said about suppressed wages and the fact that Americans are competing with foreigners that are being brought into our workforce and competing with us. I'll say two things. What America has done, no fault of the Trump administration, but we have been going down this road for decades, as you know. And that is that American workers are not competing with the 330 million people in the United States. We are competing with the world. What our immigration and worker authorization, foreign worker authorization program is doing is forcing the labor pool in America to compete for the same jobs with the entire world. And this is not a free market, because a free market would be constrained to the actual market, which is America. But the free market is being distorted by flooding the labor pool and significantly decreasing salaries that have not gone up in decades. That's remained flat, wages, when adjusted for inflation. And so that is not the free market, is it? If you have a never-ending, unlimited supply of foreign workers that America is allowing into its market, it's no longer the free market, because the government and big business are distorting the market with a flood of foreign workers. So I'll say that's enough. That's enough of me. Let's go on to the layoff stats for STEM workers. This will be shocking. You explain it for us first.
Yeah. So I was looking through the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics website. I was looking in to see how many graduates that we had in STEM. I started to realize that they had more data than they had previously published. So we got into the 2022, 2023 range. I started playing with their database, and I noticed that on those STEM workers, there was a filter for employment and unemployment. And in those filters, you could select, that if whether or not a STEM worker had been laid off. And what I realized once I started playing with that is that I could also add in the citizenship. And after the citizenship, what type of citizenship? So your green card holders versus your temporary visa holders. So I pulled those stats individually into an Excel spreadsheet, and I got a good set of numbers. And that's when I realized this is exactly what myself and many other American tech workers have felt, that primarily U.S.-born STEM workers were hit with all the layoffs that have been mass layoffs that have hit us since 2020. And with those stats, I was able to prove that U.S.-born citizens...
So wait a minute, because you're doing really well here. Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt. What you're going to give us is the layoff statistics for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math workers between 2020, early January 2020, all of 2020, 21, 22. What year range are we looking at?
We're going all the way up to 2022.
Okay.
And that's because 2023, they haven't pulled that into their database yet. But that
so 2020, 21, and 22. Sorry, go ahead.
And that would be towards the end. That would be the complete data for 2022.
Great.
And so what's important about that is that's when all the mass layoffs, like Amazon, who laid off 29,000 employees, that was when the waves began. I actually remember that when I had started at eBay, that's when Facebook had just let go all of their engineers, new engineers, and product managers. It was when the big waves came. And what the numbers show is that during that time, the STEM workers, 91.7% were U.S. born.
91.71% of the layoffs were U.S. born workers. Okay, continue.
And of that, foreign born, and so that is going to be your temporary visa holders and your green card holders, were not born in America. That impacted them 7.3%.
Now, keeping in mind that there are millions upon millions of workers in the STEM fields, and if they wanted to, well, no, you tell me, because this is a question I really need the answer to. There's a large number in that workforce, the STEM workforce. If they wanted to let go of temporary visa holders, green card holders, anybody foreign born over and above the U.S. workers, they could probably have laid off almost virtually all foreign born because we have so many in those fields. Am I off base there?
Well, you're still protected under civil rights. So no matter what your citizenship status is, your national origin, they can't target either way. So they can't target the Americans and they can't target the visa workers. Obviously, as an American and a veteran, I believe that if somebody's here on a temporary status who came here because under the employer's application, they said that there was no qualified Americans to do those jobs, that to me, that's the language that says that you should be cutting the temporary workers that are here temporary in my country, but the law still protects them as well.
I'm not sure I understand this. Do you know how many layoffs there were for those 3 years, 2020 through 2022?
So these stats are pulled off of survey data, and there was nearly almost 3 million impacted on, it's very close to that. So it was like 2.7 million workers that were part of the survey that were STEM workers that were impacted. So we're looking at about 2.7 million.
Okay. So we're looking at 2.7 million. And we know that there are many, many more millions of STEM workers in the United States. I don't know if we have the total number. Do you know that number?
I do. I don't have it in front of me, but I can tell you, for example, I know that there's like 10 million foreign workers that are in STEM occupations.
There you go. That's good enough for my analysis on the fly here. If there are 10 million foreign-born workers, whether temporary visa holders, green card holders, whatever, I don't know what, if there are 10 million foreign-born workers of whatever stripe, whatever visa status they're on, if they let go of 2.7 million over a period of 3 years in the STEM fields, they could have just let go of non-Americans.
Correct, yep.
But instead, 91.71% of those laid off because of COVID and an economic downturn were Americans. And so the 10 million foreign workers, only, I'm going to guess here, 7.31% of the 10 million foreign workers were laid off.
Well, so this is part of that survey group. So of the on nearly 3 million. And
so it'd be
I can tell you
7.31%, sorry, 7.31% of the 2.7 million.
Correct, yes. And it came out to about 180,000, somewhere around that combined for the foreign workers. And what's interesting when you drill down the data, So you have two different surveys of layoffs. So you have people who were laid off because of COVID reasons, and then people who were laid off for non-COVID related reasons. And so when I drilled down the impact of if it was a temporary visa holder versus a green card holder, for non-COVID related reasons, no temporary visa holders were impacted. And for COVID related reasons, 24,000 temporary visa holder workers were laid off. And so that's where when you get down to how many of the total layoffs were temporary visa holders versus green card holders, they only made up 0.99% of the total layoffs.
I'm disgusted. I can't wait to see your story on that so that it's more details are filled in. But just remember, folks, of all this layoffs for STEM workers between 2020, 21, and 22, those 3 full years, U.S.-born workers made up 91.71% of the layoffs. All right. Well, you know what? This is not a cheerful thing to be talking about. I keep thinking we should be laughing. There's got to be something that's entertaining about all this. But let's just move on to some stats for computer-related occupations.
Yeah. So, transparency is one of probably the biggest things that I say that we're lacking as a country. Is you got the Department of Labor who's certifying all these H-1B visas. You got the UCIS approving them based off of the criteria. And you got the Bureau of Statistics that tells you how many jobs are being created. And then you got this mass wave of other foreign workers that are being approved for work authorization, and nobody's communicating to each other. The same way with the whole reason why the Department of Labor and the UCIS keep expanding how many approvals get approved for H-1B is because of the demand. It's all based off of the employer's demand. And they're claiming that, they need X amount of H-1B workers, but really, they don't actually have that many jobs that they're even created. It proves that with the Microsoft case where, they had a net loss of jobs in between 2023 and 2024, and yet they were asking for more H-1B workers. Now, the lawyers love to argue that just because they requested this much, they only went to the UCIS and asked for this much. And usually, you're right, it is a completely different number. But what is happening is that demand number is what is driving the mission of we need more H-1B. And that's not true. They're not even creating enough jobs in order to meet that demand. So what are you saying? You need more H-1B workers to cut off more Americans? Because that's the only option. You're not creating that job. So you're going to get rid of the person that is in those. That's what that.
Yeah, let me ask or state it this way and tell me if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly. We've talked about this before. If you have, say, 1,000, let's just take 500, Fortune 500 companies. They're virtually all multinationals. They care about the bottom line. They do not care about American workers. That's my judgment. And they want to keep the pipeline of foreign workers free-flowing and big. The door needs to be open, and they want to be able to get as many as they want, foreign workers, temporary or otherwise, at any time that they want. And what they have learned over the course of years or decades is that if you keep asking for more, then Congress gets the message. Look, there are 325,000 requests for H-1B visas in America. There are 450,000 requests, and only 65 or 85,000 of these, or whatever number they choose to give, are being fulfilled. We're at a deficit. We need more foreign workers. But what they do to achieve that seeming crisis level shortage of skilled workers in America is to put in for an inflated number of requests for foreign workers out of need out of need because we couldn't find an American worker to fill the job. And so if we take the 500 multinational corporations that are all involved in this, and they each need really, say, 700, 500, 300 workers, but they ask for 2,000 or 25,000 workers. And you add that all up, and now there's a fake statistic that's being presented as this is the grave deficit that we have in skilled workers in America. But they know that they're going to get approved for 700 or 200 or 1,200, right? Is that a good analysis?
That's the exact interpretation. That is what has happened. They're using it as leverage, and it's all been based off the fact that nobody really sits there and puts all the numbers together. And we'll get into the Amazon thing next, and I'll kind of explain like how I get some of these numbers. But it's just really important that we start revealing the real truth behind the fake narratives. Because if we remove those narratives, then there is no need for these programs. There's no need to expand them. There's no need to bring anybody else here because there's no job.
We need to send them home. We need to send many home.
Not only that, but it also shows that by the UCIS and the DOL continuing to approve them, what they are actually approving is the displacement of Americans. If there is no job and you are bringing H-1B workers here, they're here to take the Americans' job. And that's what I think transparency is so important.
I will say that the single most important remedy, well, there are several things, but I will just make note of one, that the databases regarding population, jobs, H-1B, those who are here, those who were here from 3 years ago or entered 5 years ago or 10 years ago, each one of these databases need to be merged so that everything can be sorted and sifted and cross-referenced, and you can get real numbers. But when Amanda goes to get these numbers, it takes a lot of work. That's what's happening here. Those first numbers that we gave out regarding the jobs created in America between 2023 and 2024 versus the number of authorizations for foreign workers, those numbers just don't, you just don't go to the department, whichever department we're talking about, Department or Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they just fall into your lap. It doesn't just all come together like that. You've got to dig, and they're even hiding some data that used to be available, but is now hidden because it aids in making calculations and identifying which companies are gaming the system. So this number, back to the computer-related occupations, let's talk about the actual numbers now.
Yeah, so they keep talking about this, STEM graduate shortage. And in 2023, we had over 600,000 students majoring in computer information and science. I was looking at some of the numbers from the National Center of Science Engineering Statistics, and even when I drilled down into specific majors, there was a surplus in some cases of over 2 million in some of these occupations that I know are common for H-1B. So I brought in, and I was looking at the occupations of employed STEM workers, and I was looking at how many jobs that we actually created on the National Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so really, between 2022 and 2023, we only created in computer-related occupations, and that covers all computer-related occupations on their website, because I didn't drill down to the individual occupation level. I went to the 1,500 level, which includes them all. There was only 173,490 jobs that were created for computer-related occupations. That's total.
That's total, because when she says 1,500, or when you say 1,500, the Bureau of Labor Statistics categorizes in some, 700 different categories of jobs.
Yeah, they're like stock codes, or they're occupational codes that they use. And so the 15-000 is usually what you'll have STEM workers in, or you'll have computer-related engineering jobs in.
So you took all of those computer-related jobs and put them together, not an individual subset. And it came out to between 2022 and 2023. Is that full years or partial?
That's full years. So all
full
of 2022,
years.
I took
2 full years only. 2 full years.
Yeah. So
2 full years, we came up, America created 173,490 jobs. Not much. Now, tell me the other shocking statistics. This will blow your mind, everybody.
I have all the data from UCIS and all the data from the Department of Labor in my own database. And I know I can filter off of the 15 code. And so within that 15 code, we seen requests from the Department of Labor. 526,065 H-1B workers were requested. And that was a total count, not individual application count. So that's how many workers that they requested on their applications.
173,000, I'm going to round it, 500. 173,500 jobs created over a course of 2 years in computer-related occupations. Not all of STEM, but just computer-related occupations. The number of H-1Bs requested for those
requested of only 2023.
Shut up. You don't, that's only 2023. What happened to 2022?
I just went ahead. We only did a net gain of 173,000 jobs. So really, if any more than 2022, I mean.
So wait a minute. What you just said to me was, the number that you just read off, 526,065. So 526,000 H-1B requests went in for just computer-related occupations only in 2023. So that's not including 2022. What do you think, Americans, my fellow Americans, my beloved Americans, you vets, you young graduates, you high school students and parents of high school students who want their children who are STEM talented students? What are you going to tell them when they say, Mom, Dad, I'm thinking about going into, I love computers. This is where my skills and my talents lie. What are you going to tell them? Well, son, you are going to be competing against hundreds of thousands of foreigners that are going to come in and get paid less than you. And you're also going to go into a field that if you land the job, the pay has been suppressed since probably the 1980s, but at least since the 2000s, it's been flat. And when they decide to downsize or offshore, they're going to let you go first because you're American born. Do you really want to go into it? So this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right now, we have a tremendous workforce, unemployed, of STEM workers and computer-related workers for those occupations. Well, let me just say that again. Right now in America, we have an overabundance of American-born STEM graduates and workers that are seasoned, have been working in the field for years, and computer-related, which would be a subset of those STEM. We have a overabundance, not a scarcity, of supply of those workers. What I think is really dark and despicable is the fact that these major corporations, Wall Street, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, big tech, big farmer, big ag, big food, big all of this stuff, big insurance, big banks, they are inflating the number of requests for H-1B visas in order to signal to the Department of Labor and any other department related to this, and obviously the United States or the USCIS and Immigration Services, that there's an extreme shortage. But the other side to that coin is that Americans think there's a labor shortage, and there isn't. They're going into fields that are glutted with foreign workers. And so they're creating an expectation of a tight labor market in that field. And what they really have, because it's hidden from them, from view, because it's smoke and mirrors, is that it's super, super loose and flooded with foreigners. Does President Trump know that in 2022 and 2023, only 173,000 computer-related jobs were created, but in just 2023, 526,000 H-1B requests came from American multinational corporations, big tech, for computer-related job temporary visa workers.
And then you get into, that's a perfect statement. It's a perfect question to ask. If there isn't enough jobs and they're demanding these jobs, and I was focused on the companies that are lobbying the hardest for more visa access, like Microsoft and like Amazon. And I really wanted to show that these are the ones that are saying that there's a STEM shortage. And yet, like with the Microsoft example, where, between 2022 and 2024, they asked for 5 H-1B workers per one net new job that they created. How is that a STEM shortage? And then we get into Amazon.
Well, wait a minute. Before we go to Amazon, there's a number we're not looking at here that is very, very important and dear to my heart. That's disabled vets that would do well working from home in many of these fields that are being filled by foreign workers or offshored workers. College graduates, as I mentioned, are future graduates, students. But like I said, those disabled vets, that if they could work from home, they can operate a computer, they can answer customer service and tech service calls, they can do the accounting that is being outsourced and offshored to India and but mostly to India and Philippines. These are Americans that have put their lives on the line, and these are our children that are having their future cut off from them because of the glut of foreign workers that is outpacing job creation by orders of magnitude. U.S. students majoring in computer and information science, what year is this for?
So that's for, that one is for 2023.
Okay.
That's how many, how many U.S. students majoring in computer science is 600,000.
So in 2023, whether they be freshmen or seniors all the way through, we had 600,000, because it includes all 4 years, I'm assuming. So we have 600,000 students in the pipeline right now.
Or it's a 40% increase since 2021.
It just occurred to me, I've heard this actually before. What it does, these gaslighting statistics or requests, because of the dire need that America has to fill the gap in its skilled labor force. Okay, white-collar skilled labor force, when they say we are short 500,000 STEM workers. What does the counselor in the high school tell his students that he is counseling? Well, he's not in on the immigration industrial complex, which our immigration and visa system has become. It is an immigration industrial complex. there are more holes, loopholes, and fraud going on in our immigration and visa system than there is. Like, if you had Swiss cheese here, a nice slice of it for your roast beef sandwich or whatever, the holes make up more. It's more like a lacy thing. It makes up more than the actual cheese you get on that burger or that sandwich. That guidance counselor and mom and dad, they don't know that there's an immigration industrial complex that is staffed, run, driven by, better yet, foreign attorneys, immigration lobbyists, like the India lobby is one of the biggest of all. It encompasses billions and billions of dollars that are going into our system to influence Republicans and Democrats and the White House into believing that we have a shortage. We're giving you real statistics. It's all a web, a tissue of lies. That guidance counselor, that mom, that dad, when their kid says, Mom, and, I want to go into computers, and mom says, well, you ought to because you're on the computer day and night, kid. So obviously, you found your great love. And she says, I just read an article and it said that, the big tech companies are desperate to get more foreign workers in because we don't have enough graduates in the STEM fields. So you are going to get a great job because there's so much opportunity. And after all, these are probably good paying jobs because it takes smart people that have skills and talents and gifts. But you're telling me there's 600,000 in the pipeline right now. A portion of those will be graduating every year in our higher education and computers. But the total computer-related occupations for H-1B that have been requested by these guys that have been gaslighting us, these big tech and Wall Street and the Fortune 500, they're asking for 526,000 for this year alone, this was for 2023 alone. They're asking for 526,000. We've got 600,000 in the pipeline, and there was only 173,490 created jobs in 2022 and 2023. That means that really only about 80,000 jobs, 90,000 jobs were created each year, and they want 526,000 foreign workers. So there's got to be a reason that so many STEM workers are out of jobs, right? Because they're being laid off in America.
And it's funny that you talk about the mom who, seen in the news that, the Facebooks and the Amazons need so many workers and there's so many kids there. They're being encouraged to go to school. If you work in STEM, and I've heard this time and time again, if you even start to hear your kids say that they want to be STEM workers or they want to follow in your path, you tell them no. I mean, it's just the heartbreak is unreal in this field because it's just shattered the real hard STEM workers that have been building up our nation and our technology who can't get jobs and are being told that we're not skilled enough when the truth is that it's just that we're not willing to work cheap enough.
It's more than that too, though, because when our workers are competing with cultures and nations and peoples that their average annual wage in, say, India is $2,500 a year, how do you compete with that? We have to buy houses in America. We're not buying them in India. So the guy in America, because he's part of the American dream and because he's part of this great country with such extraordinary people, Americans, they're extraordinary, and that we have the rule of law and we have the culture and the civility and the imagination, and we have this incredible system and country and history, and we're producing these people. But when they get out of college, they're supposed to compete with people who at home live off of $2,500 a year. Are they willing to take half of what an American worker who has to work and pay for the American dream that he was promised he'd have the opportunity to achieve? That's our American birthright. The American dream is not the American birthright or the birthright of people in China, India, Iran, Bangladesh, Venezuela. That's not their American birthright. First and foremost, America first immigration, but America first jobs and hire America. Remember, President Trump used to say in his first term, buy American, hire Americans. That was the slogan. And Steve Miller, I know, is still there, and I know our president is. I'll go back to the question, does President Trump know? Has he been informed by his agencies and secretaries that in 2022 and 2023, only 173,000 jobs were created in computer occupations, but we have 600,000 students in school at all times. This is not new. This is not a big inflation. This has been going on for decades, that we have so many computer and information science students, but that the big tech and also big insurance, big pharma, it's not just big tech that's putting in for these H-1Bs, because every big company, every multinational company has a computer science or information science department, right? They're dealing with the tech industry. So
exactly.
Like you were in automotive, you were working for an automotive company in insurance, right?
In collision and insurance, yep, in software for that.
But you were managing and creating a massive, innovative database, and we won't go into it right now. Just trust me, she's so brilliant. And this was nothing to do with big tech. This is just having to do with replacement auto parts, and they need tech workers. These companies asked for 526,000 of them, but there was only 173,000 new jobs. President Trump doesn't know this, and if he did, because he's America first, he's MAGA. He cares about American workers, American born. If we are going to make America great again, we cannot do it without the Americans being at the forefront. If we're doing it with foreign workers, we didn't make America great again. We made other countries great, probably for the first time. Sorry, I go off on my tangents there. I just get so worked up. Tell me, Amanda, what about Amazon?
So, we get back to, the fact that it's diverse, that the whole point of this there is that there's not enough jobs. But they're being told that they need more workers, that we have a STEM shortage, that we have, a need here. And here we have Amazon from 2022 to 2023 and this is their U.S. headcount. So I like to go to EEO1 reports because that will only report on their U.S. headcounts.
And what's the EEO1?
The EEO, the Equal Employment Opportunity one report that goes to the EEOC that confirms that this is what nationalities you have and what occupations. Kind of gives you that baseline of, do you have too many of one demographic, and so forth. How many workers do you have? They don't have to publish these. Typically, especially public companies are required to by their shareholders, but they all have to file them regardless to the EEO.
So with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, I suppose, those laws that were put into place require keeping statistics of the demographic makeup of major corporations, at least. I don't know how small, low the threshold is for number of employees or for the worth or the value of the company. But they have to report this data every year. But they don't have to report, they have to report it to the EEOC, but they don't have to report it to the American people. It may be lost in shareholder brochures and annual reports. So ask yourself this, why wouldn't this be required to be reported? We spend so much money gathering information that's behind a screen, behind a curtain. And the American people should be able to go to any company that is making these reports, Amazon, Microsoft, LinkedIn, whatever companies we're talking about, Procter & Gamble, and they should be able to see what their demographic makeup is in that company. Because if it's reported to the government and we're paying for those reports to be processed and for the regulation and the oversight, we should have, this is not a national security issue. We're not talking about, China, Russia. We're just talking about our domestic labor force and, the equal employment opportunity compliance there. So they hide that information.
Foreign-born or American-born there. I think that would be a fair thing to ask for, because I've seen recent numbers that tells me that, Emphasis has 90% of their employees on some form of visa. Well, if that's the truth, then clearly they're not hiring Americans. So can I not see that data? It's not like I know which one of those employees are going to be the foreign-born and American-born.
There's no privacy issue here. That's baloney if they say that.
Exactly. But so in Amazon's case, they do publish the EO1 reports. And I think that's important because these multinational enterprises who, say that they're doing a global layoff, well, it's nice to know, who's going to get the blunt of that. Because we've had, I bring back Microsoft and Salesforce's example, where they have agreements with the India government to expand hiring in India. And then they do these mass layoffs in the United States. And then there's these publications in India that say that their leadership says that no one will be impacted in India. That's, everywhere else. So don't worry in India, you guys are not going to be laid off.
Can you see that Amanda is everywhere, by the way? She is everywhere. A day doesn't go by that she hasn't delved into some dark recess or hole in foreign documents and databases and government sites, and she finds something out. And what she will find is that American companies are speaking to India, and India is reporting to their people, oh, don't worry. Yeah, Amazon's laying off, Microsoft's laying off, so-and-so's laying off, but they're only laying off Americans, or they're laying off others, but they're not laying off foreigners. Doesn't that make you sort of just warm and fuzzy? You just want to grab a flag and wave it, because the Indians are getting these assurances, but all we're getting, and Congress and the president, is gaslighting. They get the assurances and we get gaslighting.
Well, what I was going to say too is that the sad part about this transparency and the work that I'm doing, it's already in most cases too late. Now I'm obviously on the radar for layoffs, and I have alerts actually set up anytime that the Department of Labor launches new H-1B data. So I am on top of it with the employers and current H-1B requests. But the EO1 reports are typically 1 to 2 years behind. It's the same way, the statistics that I found on the layoff. We're looking at 2022. I want to know about 2023, 2024, and 2025 because we're having mass layoffs now as well. So the part about this is that if we're loud about it now, if they did it and they lied about it then, of course they're going to continue down this path because that's what we're seeing as the trends go. But I'm trying to bring all of the numbers back together to prove that they've lied all along, and we should be handling and having some accountability. I think it's pretty fair to say. So with Amazon, I took their EO1 report, and I found that they had a 49,000 head cut. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that was all layoff. It could have been natural people leaving. It could have been, the performance improvement plans, because I've heard that Amazon's really bad about that, where they get rid of people saying that poor performers, whatever the case may be. But it was 49,763 employees gone for Amazon.
Is that between 2022 and 2023?
Yes, that's their end numbers, and I compared what did they end with in 2022 and what did they end with in 2023.
Okay, so I'm just going to read those out because I'm always frustrated when I don't get statistics. When I'm watching a video, I'm trying to write down notes all the time. So I'm going to repeat this. In 2022, Amazon had a U.S. headcount of employees of 1,099,439. 1,099,439 in 2022, December 31st. In 2023, it went down to 1,049,676. And Amanda's calculation here is that they lost, as far as headcount, staffing, by the end of 2023, 49,763. So we'll call it 50,000. So they lost 50K employees of American employees.
Well, and American employees, it doesn't mean that it couldn't be some H-1B workers. It could have been, some green card holders. That's how many net that they lost. And I'm not going to go out and assume that just because they're white employees that they're necessarily American. But what I'll tell you is that based off of all my stats for Amazon, their primary beneficiary for visas are under the Asian category. And what was interesting is that even though white employees only made up 27% of their total employee headcount, and so that includes laborers.
Amazon only employs in America 27% of the workforce is white?
Correct.
That doesn't make sense because whites would be 60-some% of the population, and they only employ 27% whites. What does the EEOC say about that?
Well, in 2014, the EEO told them that they had too many white people. So I don't know.
Oh, so they took care of that problem.
Apparently.
During Obama. Great job.
They only made up that 27% of the total workforce. And again, I want to clarify that that's professionals, people who are, tech workers. It includes people who work in the warehouses or even drivers. It includes all of that.
Full.
And yet they were hit with 66% of the total lost headcount. So 32,500 white people disappeared.
I laugh about this because for the first time in my life the other day, somebody said something and it occurred to me that what they said was so true, but it had never passed through my brain before. That in the world, white people are a minority. I realize that I'm actually a minority in the world. And I think it's funny because we Americans, I think until Obama, were post-racial focused. And then Obama made very sure that race became an issue when he was elected by a majority white Americans. He was elected, put into office, but he made race resurface as, one of the key themes, I think, of his administration, as far as I see it. So now we're back to this racialized society and talking about race woke all the time. But what I realize is that the one thing you cannot talk about, and we feel very uncomfortable about it because we've been made to feel uncomfortable. If I was Filipino, I'd be a proud Filipino. And I would be talking about Filipino this, percentages here, labor, marriage statistics or whatever. And I wouldn't feel as if I was a racist because I talked about my ethnicity or the color of my skin or something. And if I was Arab, and if I was, Chinese, Indian, that kind of thing, Latino. But we just gave us statistics, white employees' net job losses, 60%, 66% of the total layoffs. And they were underrepresented to an extraordinary degree because only 27% of Amazon's workforce in America is white. And then they hit that with the 66% of the total layoffs of the 50,000 that they laid off. That is something we've got to start being comfortable as people with white skin. It's no sin to have white skin, to talk about there seems to be an agenda here, and it is contrary to everything that America stands for. Dr. Martin Luther King said, judge people not by the color of the skin, but the content of their character. This is what we're supposed to be doing, but we're being told by reality that is not what's happening. Because it can't be that 66% of the minority of workers, white workers, needed to be laid off as compared to our darker skinned brothers and sisters in this country.
And I'll add that the historical minorities groups were hit the other 24%. And again, when I said that their visa workers tend to be Asian, they were only hit 8%.
Shut up. So they bring in H-1B. That's going to be primarily Chinese and Indian. H-1B is typically Indian first in terms of number, Chinese second. I don't count them as the same Asian. There's Southeast Asia, there's Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, that kind of thing. And then there's China, Korea, South and North, and Japan, and those countries. They're just very different, but they glom them together. But we know that immigrants that H-1B and other programs are first Indian numbers, which are considered Asian in America, and Chinese. And they were only hit with what percentage?
8%.
You didn't have that written down here. 8%.
It's because I had it memorized.
Yes. I just memorized it. So
I could tell that, when we were talking about, because I actually have all those numbers of the makeup of percentage we have for these major employers that do H-1B. And at the same time, by the end of 2022 and the end of 2023, they had asked for 34,000 net new H-1B workers. And that's not what they request from the Department of Labor. That number would actually be significantly higher. That is what they got approved net new from the UCIS.
So they asked for the big inflated number to gaslight the American people, Congress, the president, the administration, and the states. They lost Americans. Okay, sorry. Let me say this. Amazon cut its American labor force by 50,000 after 2022. Most of those jobs were American-born. Most of those jobs were white American-born, 66%. The American-borns or whites were only 27% of their workforce to begin with. Asians, which would include Chinese and Indians, were only cut by 8%. Now what you're saying is that they requested for 2022 and 2023, 19,000 and 15,000, which is 34,000 net new H-1Bs that were approved. So 34,000 foreign workers were approved for work authorization for Amazon alone, 34,000. And they cut 50,000 in those same years, and 32,500 of which were white Americans.
Correct. And I will tell you that about 11,000 of those fell into that H-1B category of the white employees that were laid off, that would have qualified for an H-1B comparable position. So whether it was, a tech worker or a product manager, they fell into that same category as the H-1B workers. There was about 11,000 of those, over 11,000.
So 1/3 of the white employees that were laid off, which were a tiny minority of their labor force at Amazon, 11,000 of them would have been in the fields or the occupations that are normally brought in for H-1B, foreign workers, are fulfill. So I promised, or I thought I promised, that we were going to do something short, because I said, you know what? We're going to just whip through these statistics, Amanda, because we want people to have these statistics and stay riveted through to the end, go to WorldNetDaily and keep looking for America First Immigration. That's a block of on the front page where all of Amanda's work is always there. And any of my shows that relate to immigration go there as well. Number two, I've not created promotion. Everybody knows this, but we have a whistleblower special report, which we normally do once a month. And this upcoming one is going to be 100% focused on India. And I am calling it the India lobby, because that's really what it's about. If that changes, but this next upcoming whistleblower special report at WorldNetDaily is the India lobby. And Amanda Louise, this woman here, and with some input from others, but it's mostly about her work, which is extraordinary. She is a superstar, and we're so happy. I'm so happy that she's with us, because we want to do this for America. That's our passion. That's Amanda's passion. She just wants to save America, and so do I, and so does WorldNetDaily. And you know what? I've said it many times. I care about President Trump so much, and I care about the success of his administration. And I will repeat what I've said many times. I believe that this issue has a greater and more profound effect on the lives of Americans today and the economic, cultural future that we have going forward in America. It's all about immigration, visas, and naturalization and citizenship, and also offshoring. This is it. This is what it's really all about. All of the rest may be important, but this is the single most important thing that President Trump has to accomplish. It's not the Epstein files, though that's important. It's not a lot of other things. This is what's important. And this is what MAGA voted for. And if we love Trump, we're going to make sure that he gets clips and videos like this so that they can be put in front of him and he can know the truth. Because people like Amanda Louise Bartolota and WorldNetDaily are working really hard to inform everybody of the truth of the immigration and